So we have a bit of a spicy topic today, but you guys are well aware that I am not one to shy away from spicier topics. I've seen a lot of Nintendo fanboys and girls and all that sort of stuff clutching their pearls over this, doing their best Greta Thunberg impersonation. How dare you? How dare you say this about Nintendo? And like, it's just a weird sort of thing for me because of how emotional people get over things that when you actually look at the situation, you know, it's not about what is being said. It's more so about people's reaction to it that makes it the most interesting thing to me and makes me want to talk about it to add some clarity and perspective to a situation, because I'm not a Nintendo YouTuber. I talk about them a good bit, but in my heart and soul, I'm a multi-platform person. It's just I can only talk about so many things in a day. Recently, Mr. Shuhei Yoshida, the ex-president of Sony Interactive Entertainment, who just retired in 2025, this year, of course, did an interview with Kit and Krista over on their podcast. Now, I'll have a link to this in the description box down below because it's definitely generating a lot of headlines online, with basically PlayStation acting like Nintendo is not competition for them. And Mr. Yoshida talks about this in the interview. He goes into details about it, and that's got Nintendo people losing their minds. Oh, this is disrespectful. This is ridiculous. And I think I have a bit of a different perspective than a lot of people. Like I said, the link for the podcast is in the description box down below. I highly suggest you go check it out. Kit and Krista are good people. They tolerate me, which you can't say for a lot of other people within this industry. So I like them. They're cool with me. But here's what Yoshida had to say about competition and how PlayStation views Nintendo and, by extension, the Nintendo Switch 2. Working for PlayStation, their perception of the competition is always Xbox. They see Microsoft being the competition because Xbox is very similar. Performance, hardware. Like a high-end console, mature games, and Nintendo is very, very different. Nintendo is family-friendly, games for everyone, and not about technology. It's more about having fun with friends and family and always having multiple controllers bundled with the hardware. Inside Sony, even when they do a business analysis, Nintendo doesn't show up. So there's a competition market share between PlayStation and Xbox, and somehow they don't include Nintendo. Not that they are ignoring Nintendo, but they don't necessarily feel like Nintendo is competition because Nintendo is covering a different audience. In a bigger scale, Nintendo is bringing up a young audience into gaming, and some of them, when they grow up, might graduate into more mature systems like the PlayStation or the Xbox. Of course, there's huge respect for what Nintendo does in terms of how Nintendo should be doing in the industry. We all felt that it's great to have Nintendo to continue to be so successful so that we can grow the industry, continue to grow the industry together kind of feeling. Except for one market, in Japan. In Japan, Nintendo is hugely strong, and Xbox almost doesn't exist. It's all about Nintendo versus Sony. So, PlayStation people working in Japan see Nintendo clearly as competition. But outside Japan, PlayStation people clearly see Xbox as a primary competition. So basically, what Mr. Yoshida is saying here is that PlayStation as a company outside of Japan, and let's be first and foremost with this, PlayStation's brand has definitely diminished in Japan. Obviously, you know, the studio closures out there and all of that sort of stuff, the shift to the more Western market in terms of game design and development and influences has definitely shifted their mentality from Japan more so into the West, for better or worse, depending on who you ask. But outside of Japan, PlayStation doesn't see Nintendo as a direct competitor. And that is what people are upset about. Like, they feel like it's disrespectful for it to be that way, and that PlayStation should see Nintendo as a competitor because Nintendo maybe sees PlayStation as a competitor. You never have this sort of information come out of Nintendo to what they feel is a competitor or what isn't a competitor. But I look at this from a completely different perspective. I look at this from a bit of a truth perspective because let's be realistic here. PlayStation and Nintendo are definitely in different lanes when it comes to what they do in terms of hardware, in terms of software, and in terms of things like that. Now, yes, they do cross over from time to time, but realistically speaking, the last time that Nintendo and PlayStation were in direct competition was probably the GameCube PS2 era, because you might remember, or you might not if you're younger, that the GameCube was stronger on paper than the PlayStation 2 was. But the PlayStation 2 had a massive advantage over the GameCube, and that was a very cheap and affordable DVD player. The DVD medium was just garnishing steam around then, and people were wanting DVD players. DVD players in and of themselves were expensive things, but you could convince your parents, hey, look at this, it's a cheaper DVD player and I can play my video games on it, so everyone wins. Now, was that the only reason that the PS2 was more successful than the GameCube? No, I think the PS2 had a better overall library than the GameCube did when it was all said and done in terms of exclusive games and what have you, but that was definitely a driving force, at least initially, in terms of the system sales. After the GameCube and the PlayStation 2 era, they went in completely different paths. Xbox stayed with the PlayStation mentality. Okay, we're going to make better hardware. We're going to focus online. We're going to focus on grittier games with the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 generation. What did Nintendo do? They went with the Wii, which was a beefed up GameCube in some regards that focused on motion controls and focused on more casual experiences. Now, yes, there were mature experiences on the Nintendo Wii. There were cross-generational games that, I shouldn't say cross-generational, cross-platform games that came out on both the Wii and the PlayStation 3. But that was not the norm for things like that. And the Wii versions of these games were very different than the PlayStation 3 versions. But the PlayStation 3 versions were comparable to the Xbox 360 versions. And then, of course, you had the PS4 and the Xbox One, once again, kind of going for the same path. And then you had the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. At this point in time, Nintendo has started not only doing different types of hardware with things like the Wii U and what have you, but they also went on a different release schedule than these other companies did. You know, think about when the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X came out. They came out around the same time. It was like 2 weeks apart from each other. And then years later, the Nintendo Switch 2 came out because the Nintendo Switch had already been on the marketplace. There are people out there that like to have conversations about when the generation starts and who's starting the generation, which is a very, very strange discussion. Like, who gives a shit? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know why people get so hung up on that. Now with the Nintendo Switch 2, you're starting to see, you know, bigger games that couldn't be done on the Switch 1 come over to the Nintendo Switch 2, which is a good thing. But I still don't think that creates a direct competition. Sony likes to do their single-player, narrative-driven games that you might like them, you might dislike them, but that's what they focus on, and stuff like games as a service, whereas Nintendo is doing different styles of games. They're doing different types of games. You're not going to mistake a PlayStation game for a Nintendo game. You're not going to mistake a Nintendo game for a PlayStation game. Now, yes, there will be some times where you could be like, oh, well, look at Astro Bot. That's obviously inspired by Mario games. And yeah, sure, PlayStation does things like that. Remember the PlayStation Move on the PlayStation 3 when they wanted to get into the, motion control aspect of it? But that doesn't necessarily make them direct competitors. When you look at the car industry, not every car manufacturer is going for the same individual. You know, some of them are going for higher end people. Some of them are going for lower end people. Some of them are going for economy. Some of them are going for, people that like trucks and stuff like that. Variety is the spice of life. And I don't think Honda is looking at Porsche and being like, oh, this is a direct competitor to us. Now, does that mean that Honda is a lesser brand than Porsche? It costs less, but more people have a Honda than they do a Porsche. I go back and I think about what I said in a previous video that was just a couple of days ago on the channel, actually, talking about how the video game industry is allegedly at its biggest that it's ever been in terms of everything, players, this, that, and the other. So that would mean, by that extension, if there's more people playing games than ever before, that a ecosystem that was smaller, that managed to support the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, the Nintendo Wii, the Nintendo DS, and the PSP. All of those systems selling very, very well, being very, very successful for their own, whatever they were trying to do. If all of those systems can be in the same ecosphere, but many of them not be in competition with each other, what does it matter if PlayStation views the Nintendo Switch 2 as competition? Like, what does it matter? The marketplace is so big. I want more people in the marketplace. If Xbox leaves the marketplace when it comes to consoles, which it looks like they're going to do, then you're going to only be left with two options. And yes, I guess they both make video games, so you would put them kind of side by side against each other, but they're not trying to do the same thing. They're not trying to appeal to the same audience. The only audience that they're trying to appeal to is the video game audience. But the video game audience, as we have learned, is a very diverse audience with different people prioritizing different things and wanting specific things out of their games. Some people like the story-driven narrative and high-end graphics and ray tracing. Some people just want to have fun with a game, and they want to be able to experience some of those experiences that are available on other platforms. Like, it's just a weird thing to get upset about. I don't think PlayStation should look at Nintendo as a direct competition. You're both in the same sphere, okay? But you're obviously targeting different demographics. You're obviously trying to go after different marketplace people. And the fact that the PlayStation systems and Nintendo systems come out at different times. Like, let's be real here. Is the Nintendo Switch 2 a direct competitor to the PlayStation 5? The PlayStation 5's already sold 70 million plus. A lot of people who wanted a PlayStation 5 have a PlayStation 5. So the Nintendo Switch 2 isn't going to really have much bearing on that. By the time the PlayStation 6 comes out, a lot of people are going to have the Nintendo Switch 2. So is that going to have any bearing on what people are going to want out of a PlayStation 6? And are they going to, I can't buy this because I just, the Switch 2 just came out recently? Like, no, bro. There is more than enough marketplace for both of these companies to exist, and they are in very different lanes as far as what they are doing within video games. So don't get upset by this, because there's no reason to be upset, because at the end of the day, PlayStation probably doesn't see Nintendo as competition, and Nintendo probably doesn't see PlayStation as competition. It's two different demographics within the same marketplace, and they can coexist. I just am hopeful that Xbox doesn't go away, because if Xbox goes away, then you have one king on one side and one king on the other. And the true king, of course, is the king DSP. Make sure you pay your king's tax on your DSP videos. I have gone down that rabbit hole, and his live streams just crack me up. I've never seen someone talk so much about needing money and like, where are the donations, guys? Don't you like the game? We were playing the game here. I thought you guys would like it. Let's get some support going. Let's get some Kick donations. We got to get some Kick subscribers and stuff. It's fascinating stuff. It's horrible, but fascinating. Anyways, that's just my thoughts. Maybe you view this in a completely different lens, and that's cool. I'm not going to disagree with you. It's just my opinion at the end of the day. Let me know what you think of it in the comments section down below. Be sure to check out the source video for this. I'll have a link to it in the description box down below. It's amazing that Kit and Krista can get Yoshida on there, yet John never gets any guests for the Spawn cast. Like, most of the guests that you've seen recently have been my doing. Jack Move Johnny, Sunbro. Like, I get those guests. I'm like, John, bring someone on. Spicing this up a little bit. Freshen it up a little bit. Lazy Wave should be his name. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to my channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.